Hi there brewers, my name is Eli and I'm the owner and brewer at Ill Intentions Fermenter and Distillery located in Cherry Gardens, South Australia. We are a nanoscale, environmentally conscious brewery with circular economy at the forefront of our decision making. We run the brewery entirely on rainwater and have invested in enough solar generation to offset all of our consumption. All liquid and solid waste is fed to our chickens, composted, or used to irrigate the garden. We even heat the family pool with waste heat from the brewery. Today I'm continuing a series of videos covering the brewery equipment I have purchased and set up. In this video I take a closer look at the Unitank fermenters I paired with the 300 litre Brewzilla brewhouse. My budget allowed for 3 fermenters and I was specifically looking for the ability to pressure ferment. With a maximum brewhouse output of around 300 litres, I wanted to provide lots of flexibility in how I could use my fermenters now and into the future. KegLand offers a good range of fermenter sizes, which all come well equipped. After considerable deliberation, I landed on 2 600 litre and 1 400 litre Unitanks. The justification for this was to have the ability to double batch into the 600 litre tanks as demand grew, but also have a smaller tank for smaller batches starting out, or in the future for more experimental brews. I opted for the 400 litre tank as there is belief in the brewing community that increased headspace can help with a healthier ferment. With extra headspace and under fermentation pressure of around 15 psi, I can also keg the whole batch using the stored head pressure and not have to introduce more CO2. So far, I haven't needed to introduce bottled CO2 into the brewery. 400 litres is also where the tank design transitions from top hatch to side manway. This was important for me due to the increase in accessibility and ease of cleaning that a side manway provides. This manway design also brings an increased look of professionalism to the equipment. Both sizes come loaded with all the features I was after straight off the shelf. This includes a CIP spray ball, pressure release safety valve, 4-inch triclover top port for dry hopping, glycol jacket right down the cone, racking arm, carb stone, thermowell, flow controlled tap for sampling, and pressure fermentation kit with pressure gauge and spunding valve. Each fermenter is shipped with enough tri-clamps and seals for every port, including the 2 glycol ports. I ordered more clamps and seals before delivery since I didn't know how many would come with it, but it doesn't hurt to have a few spares laying around. Delivery and installation of these units was more straightforward than the brewhouse, but did face a couple of challenges. A trolley jack is fine for moving the units into position, as they come screwed to the bottom pallet through its shipping feet. We didn't have the height or ability to lift the tanks vertically off the pallet once in position. Instead, with just 2 people, we slid one side off and then tilted the tank to pull the pallet out. Even the 600 litre tanks have an excellent balance point at around 45 degrees, which makes them easy for one person to hold. I'll admit to being terrified of doing this to begin with, but had no other option, so just dived into it and it all worked well. The more sensible option is to use a forklift with some straps through the lift rings on the top of the fermenters, as the designers had intended. We used the same approach when removing the shipping feet and installing the actual feet. These just thread off and then a spanner is used to adjust until level. Similar to the brewhouse, I am very happy with the production and materials quality for these units, with no obvious compromises taken. The inclusions listed earlier are all great, except look out for the carb stones, as I believe they were shipped with an O-ring in the wrong spot, which just needs to be moved to the other side of the locking nut to produce a seal. The carb stones come with a hose barb fitting, which I switched out for a push fit since I didn't want a permanent web of gas lines running through the brewery. If I opt to put in bottled CO2, I will be able to run the hoses when required. This is just personal preference though, and I could even cap these ports off when I'm pressure fermenting. The CIP, which I'm running from the brewhouse, works well, except I highly recommend taking out all the fittings first and giving them a manual clean, as crust does build up in the crevices. This includes the carb stone, sample port and the racking arm. You could also take out the thermowell, but I haven't had the same issues with this as the other ports. The spunding valve doesn't bubble through a liquid reservoir like you see in some setups. Instead, they are an adjustable pressure and vacuum release valve, the same as sits at the top for a safety valve. To adjust these valves, you simply screw off the dome entirely to access the mechanism underneath. To increase pressure, screw the nut tighter, and to decrease pressure, unscrew the nut. You will want to make these adjustments as your fermentation gets underway, starting with it unscrewed so you don't run the risk of overpressurizing. Once set, these need very little attention. The vacuum release function is good to have, and I hear it hissing as things cool down following a hot CIP cycle. However, if not fermenting under pressure, this is a potential point of oxygen ingress as you cold crash or gravity transfer. Keep this in mind. For the 4-inch port at the top, I've added a 2-inch reducer and a 2-inch butterfly valve to each tank. This enables me to add on a dry hopping setup that I can purge and dump under pressure. This was a setup I developed on the top of my old Firmzilla, and I like it because I can extend it depending how much hops I'm adding. You could also use KegLand's hop bong with some extension tubes. I crack these butterfly valves when running a CIP cycle to stop the pressure building up. To run a CIP cycle, I remove the section of tubing with the spunning valve on it and connect my brewery hose directly to the arm. I don't know if this is entirely necessary since the liquid pressure is not that high, but I'm not sure what the cleaning detergents and heat could do to the pressure gauge. I then connect the bottom drain port back to the drain port in front of the pump on the brew house, and you can cycle the liquid through. This works smoothly for the wort pump, but when you use the hot liquor tank, you need to bung the drain hole in the bottom once the tank is empty, otherwise it pulls air into the pump and won't pull liquid from the fermenter. I'm going to experiment with a rubber stopper on a stick for this, but could also be solved in production at the brew house by putting an extra butterfly valve directly under the hot liquor tank. The flow control tap for the sample pour is fine, but I haven't managed to take a good pour from serving pressure. With no line balance, it is nothing but foam, yet still serves its purpose. KegLand do stock a pigtail style sample pour if you want more control under pressure. A detailed explanation of how I've set these fermenters up with glycol will be in the next video, covering the glycol chiller I purchased. In summary, these fermenters are fantastic little units that come standard with all the features you could ask for. Build quality is solid, the tanks are well insulated and have full-length glycol jackets, so you can still chill small batches. For Australian customers, all off-the-shelf pressure fermenters come with the appropriate Australian standard and work cover approvals required for pressure vessel plant. Thank you all for watching this video, and please go and watch my other videos covering the other components of the brewery setup.